My name is Ela Gandhi, and I am a trustee of the Gandhi Development Trust, and I'm also a board member of the International Center of Nonviolence in South Africa. I've come to Australia because an initiative was taken by Dr. Gambhir Watts of the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan to set up a similar center in Australia and to continue the work that we are doing in South Africa in Australia. The Gandhi Development Trust has been formed to promote Gandhian ideas. And since 2002, when the trust was formed, we have been trying to promote the message, particularly of building a culture of nonviolence in South Africa to people in the country and to people internationally. In 2006, we had a conference which was called Satyagraha, a pro-peace agenda, which was the 100th anniversary of the beginning of Satyagraha. And Satyagraha is soul force or pursuit of truth, or the name given by Gandhiji to the nonviolent action movement. So in 2006 we had an international conference, and at that conference a decision was taken that we as Gandhi Development Trust should set up an International Center of Nonviolence. That is how the International Center of Nonviolence in South Africa was initiated. Now, we differentiate between the two organizations. Gandhi Development Trust promotes Gandhian ideas, and it promotes everything that Gandhiji said and did in many different ways through education, through publications, and so on. Whereas ICON promotes nonviolence, a culture of nonviolence from early childhood right until university and beyond. But the message of nonviolence is not only Gandhiji's message. That message comes from many, many philosophers, many people who have spoken about nonviolence, about the culture of nonviolence, and so on. So that is the difference between Gandhi Development Trust on the one hand and ICON on the other hand. I think it's important firstly to start from the person itself, himself or herself. And when I say this, I mean that all of us come into this world with a particular background which is developed by our families, the culture into which we are born, and so on. So we have that background. The minute we are born, that background comes into play and shapes our lives. So if we want to promote anything, we have to understand that background and to promote it in relation to that background, not as something alien to that background. And therefore, the most effective way that we think this message can be taken forward is to study each of the cultures and study their traditions, and then take it through their traditions into the education system and so on, but not to implant it as an alien thing being implanted into a different sort of culture. Well, I think there are two things that are very important. One is the basic values of love, of respect, of compassion, of thinking in terms of the whole community rather than of the individual only, and responsibility, taking responsibility. These are messages that all of us need to have very strongly embedded in us. But apart from that, the second message is about non-violence, that there are ways, non-violent ways of dealing with conflict, of dealing with life situations. And what is happening at the moment is that through films, through many different ways, because our society is so full of violence, even if the violence is perpetrated by just a few people, it is projected in such a way that everybody is exposed to that violence, is seeing that violence through media and through films and other visual as well as written word. So from early childhood, children are exposed to that violence and they begin to think that that is how life is, that there is no other way of dealing with issues. And so we are saying that there is another way and you can use the other way. Let's learn about this other way of dealing with issues. So let's change our history books. Let's begin to look at the peace movements rather than focusing on the wars and the war movement. In history, there have been lots of people who have talked about peace. Let's project that within our school syllabus and so on. Let's look at the different methods that people have used. They have come up with their own methods. In each incident of peaceful resistance, you see that people have come up with different methods. Fasting, occupying a place, marching, humor, and all kinds of things that people have devised, themselves. So this is what we have to learn. What are those non-violent ways? And how can we improvise? How can we find our own non-violent way of dealing with a particular situation? Well, for me right now, I'm looking at the early childhood development. We call it the ECD section of education. And I have dedicated my time in the next at least 6 to 9 months to look at how we can develop a core curriculum that we can give to every teacher in every early childhood learning center to use in their teaching in the centers, so that these messages of values and of non-violence can be conveyed to the children from that early learning phase. What I would like to do is, after we've done that, to look at how steadily we can bring that into every grade in school, so that every grade they go to, they will get the same messages in maybe in different forms, depending on the level of the child's understanding, but it will carry on right until university. And that's the only way it can be entrenched, internalized into every child's psychology, mentality. Well, my message is that let's get together and let's try to come up with a model that will be effective in transmitting this message. The message, I think, is very, very important, because we are seeing more and more violence in the world, and we are seeing the depletion of the resources of the world, of our environment, and it all goes hand in hand. If we destroy each other and we destroy the environment, there will be nothing left for the future generations. And in order to save that, this message is very, very serious. And I hope that everybody will join in to find the best way of transmitting the message to the next generation.